Hey, Algebra 1, Catlin here with your cool down help for today. Kieran at the carnival. Kieran is spending $12 on games at the carnival, where a game cost a quarter and a ride cost $1. So we got decimals kind of thrown into the mix here when I write our equation. So this will be a little different than what we did in class, but same idea. All right, we're going to write an equation once again to represent the relationship between the dollar amount that Kieran is spending, he's spending $12, and the number of games X and number of rides Y that he can do. All right, so we've already kind of had this happen a bunch of times, so this should be pretty quick for you. X is games, Y is rides, and our first task is to write an equation using those variables and using the money in the situation that it shows here at the beginning. So let's jump right into that. If I'm going to ride a ride and it costs $1, then Y would represent the number of rides that I go on and the dollar amount that I spend. So I can just write 1Y plus. Now for the games, it's going to be a little bit different because for the games, it only takes a quarter of $1, 0.25 or 1/4. I'm going to, for the purposes of this equation, and for the purpose of slope, which I think will be more helpful, I'm going to write this as a quarter of x instead of 0.25x. And you'll see why in a little bit whenever I finish this. So I add the money from the rides plus the $quarter that I spend per game. That should add up to me spending a total of $12. So there's my equation that matches the situation with my x and my y's and everything. So that's number one. That's I can write that here as well. Y plus a quarter x equals 12. Okay. Which graph represents the relationship between the quantities in this situation? So all you had to do on your cool down was match the graph that goes along with this equation. So there's lots of different ways that you can get here. One of the main things that we did was we found the 0 points where it crosses the axes, x and y axis. That was pretty easy. Another thing that we did is we solved for y. We got y by itself, and it told us what the slope was, how far it went down and how far it went over. I'm going to do both as a good way to review for you here how to get this correct. So the first way I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in zeros. All right, so let's say that Kieran doesn't go on any rides. Okay, so his y is that he spends no money on rides. And then we would add a quarter x to that and still get 12. Well, that would go away, right? And the way that I would get x by itself here is I would divide 12 by a quarter. Now, when I take 12 and I divide by a quarter, that's really the same as taking 12 and multiplying by its reciprocal. So really, I could go and play 48 games, right? So there should be a mark on here where x is 48. I do 48 games and I do no rides. So I'm looking for that somewhere on here. Definitely not that one. Could be this one. Doesn't look like that one's going to work, right? So I'm leaning towards C right now because that looks like that might continue down and cross the x-axis and give me 48. But to kind of prove it, I do see that it does cross the y-axis here. So let's plug in 0 for x and see if it gives me the y that I'm looking for there. So if I put in y plus 1/4 and I don't play any games, then these would go away and y would be 12, and that seems to make sense, right? So I feel like that's going to cross down here at 48. It crosses at y equals 12. So do those. But I think the 48 helps me pinpoint that this one seems to be going in a pattern that's going to match that, right? So I'm feeling good about C right now for those two reasons, but I also want to talk about why C is correct in relationship to slope, okay? Because that was a big thing that we talked about in class today, all right? So the original equation was y plus a quarter x equals 12. Now, if I want to get this to where the slope is shown to me in the equation, I can get y by itself. And so what I can do here is I can take a quarter x away from both sides because that quarter x minus a quarter x means nothing, and I'm left with just the y. That equals 0. And then on the right side, I still got my 12, and I'm subtracting a quarter x from it. So in this equation, y is by itself, and the number that's in front of my x, which in this case is a negative 1/4, this is my slope. This is my m, or my slope. And what that tells me about the graph is that I'm going to have a rise over run. Okay, my rise to run ratio is going to be down 1 over 4. So the one that we feel like matches that, let's see if that actually happens. Okay, so let's pick some other points on this. It goes through, looks like right here, and it looks like it goes through right here. Did I have a down 1 over 4 relationship on my line? Down 1 over 4. Yes, I did. And so it matches in so many ways that C should be the one that you select because of the 0 marks where it crosses, the slope that we found whenever we did our equation rewriting is y by itself. There's so many reasons why C should be the match for this versus the other two. And that's all I got for you guys today. Hope this was helpful. See ya.